of you read through Ecclesiastes, I think, for this class? Yeah, okay. Boy, talk about your depressing book. I mean, this guy just kind of kicks me in the shins all the time. You know, what kind of read is this? And again, how does this help me understand God better, to know God better? How does that help me to think about myself in relationship to God? So God revealed himself to me. Great, but how does this help me out? The book of Ecclesiastes is actually, in my opinion, one of the most relevant books of the Old Testament for our lives today. But it's an easily misunderstood book. And that's why we read it and we feel so depressed about it. We can figure out easily enough what the book is taking away from us. It's not as easy to figure out what the book is giving us. And how we're supposed to take something away that we can feel like we learned a lesson. Again, instead of just going through the pain of it all. So how is the book functioning to carry out its task? What is its task? One of the key themes in the book of Ecclesiastes, you saw it over and over again, it starts right from the beginning. Meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Maybe your translation said vanity, vanities. All is vanity. You know, whatever translation, whatever term the translator chose, it's that kind of idea. The word occurs a couple dozen times in the book, and it keeps coming back to it over and over, a major theme. What is it that term expresses that translators struggle so much with? The Hebrew word is hevel, and by the way, it also is the word that is the name of an early character in Scripture, Cain and his brother Hevel, Abel. Talk about something meaningless in one sense, as Abel's life ended up. But so what is it that the book wants to convey about this? Is life really so bad as all of that? That everything's just a trash heap? Nothing's worthwhile? Is this trying to persuade us to be nihilistic or fatalistic? Or, you know, what's it giving us? I don't have a better suggestion for translating the word hevel, but I think I understand it. And I understand it from what its opposite is. Sometimes that's how it works with words. You get your clearest idea of what they mean by the word that describes what it isn't. And the opposite of hevel is self-fulfillment. When the book keeps talking about how everything's hevel, it's saying you won't find self-fulfillment there. I'm tempted to even say you won't find fulfillment there. But the fact is, I think, maybe you could push back on this, but even when we talk about fulfillment, in the end, we really are talking about self-fulfillment, whether we put the self on the front there or not. So the book talks about all the different ways that people try to find self-fulfillment and how they don't work. How that even when it seems that they might be working, and might seem to work for a long time, there's always a catch. Then you die. There's an article that appeared in Christianity Today over a decade ago now. And I think the author, Mark Buchanan, highlights the problem very helpfully. There's an article called Stuck on the Road to Emmaus, subtitle, The Secret to Why We Are Not Fulfilled. Let me read you just a couple paragraphs. Most Christians I meet feel stuck. They started a journey, but somewhere, somehow, got stranded. Where is this huge, exultant freedom for which Christ set us free? Why do I still fret over downturns in the Asian markets, get irked by reckless and doddering drivers, harbor grudges over petty slights, care more about my rhododendron bush than about the soul of the boy who broke its branches playing street hockey? Why can I sustain a capacity to explore in my mind vast tracts of an imaginary world, think world of warfare here, okay, but can barely focus my prayers on God for more than 30 seconds at a go? The most wondrous, breathtaking truth I've ever contemplated is the story of the triune God and his ways with humanity, with me. But a fly tapping on the window can distract me from this story. And there are 100 things I'd rather do. 10 minutes of my morning set aside for appropriating the story's meaning into my life seems a sacrifice, and sometimes just a nuisance. He continues, as a pastor, I hear and see all the time those who want to have a deeper, richer experience with Christ, but they find themselves instead, if you'll recognize yourself here, whiling away their days. Their days pass by in blurring swiftness and yet drag on in a dreary sameness, in jobs they dislike, in relationships that baffle and hurt them, financial worries, health problems. They don't feel fulfilled. And they carry a secret dread. Is there more? And I'm the only one missing it? Or worse, is this it? And everybody's pretending it's enough. Skipping sound. One of our persistent cultural myths is the myth of fulfillment. The promise that on this earth, the fullness of all I truly need and all I really desire awaits. It's not just a Hollywood myth. It's a Christian one too. Maybe it's especially Christian. The problem is, he goes on, I don't see fulfillment this side of heaven promised in Scripture. I see joy promised and peace, but also tribulation, soul-piercing. I see that great cloud of witnesses who surround us, cheering us on, who among them have faced jeers and flogging, were chained, put in prison, were stoned, sawed in two, went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, mistreated, wandered in deserts and mountains and caves and holes in the ground. And what more, the Bible tells us, none of them received that which had been promised. The portrait of the faithful is not a portrait of the fulfilled. What defines them and what defines all of us on this road is hope. One more paragraph. He returns to the disciples on the road to Emmaus, which is where he started out the article about, accompanying the risen Jesus. You remember the story, Luke 24. They're kind of, Jesus joins them and they don't know who he is, and then eventually they kind of figure it out. So, let's think about those two disciples. Were they fulfilled after this? No more fights with the spouse? No more shouting with the kids? No more days of feeling You know the feeling, both empty and heavy inside. No more doubting, no more despairing, no more fretting over whether the trickle of money will ever catch up with the torrent of bills. Never again missing the risen Jesus in their midst. Of course, we don't know because we're not told. But if the stories of the other disciples gives us any clue, the best response to the question, were they fulfilled, is to answer the wrong question. Was Paul fulfilled? Was Peter? Was John? It's simply the wrong question. Are you? It's simply the wrong question. Fulfillment is heaven's business. Welcome to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes gives the details of helping us to understand that fulfillment is not on the table. Let me diagram the book of Ecclesiastes for you. Okay. Enjoy going to theme parks? Enjoy roller coasters? Maybe you do. Lots of people do. Wait in long lines, ride a roller coaster. Some people don't. You know, I've never quite figured out why I really would like to have my stomach up here, you know. No. So, what I'm more inclined to do when I go to a theme park is to kind of hop on the monorail. You know, just kind of that ride that kind of, it's up high, but it just kind of glides around the park and it shows you the sights. You know, no death-defying drops, no turns where you feel like you're going to go off the tracks. None of that. Just kind of nice, smooth ride with my wife and, you know, enjoying it, right? Now, so if I went to a theme park and I decided I want to get on the monorail and kind of see the sights here and got in the line and then got up to the front, got on the car, and realized, oops, this was the roller coaster line. I'm on a roller coaster. And suddenly all the turns and drops are a part of my experience. And I will have discovered that my expectations were being dashed. It was a different sort of ride. Many people believe that life and normality in life ought to be the monorail. That life ought to go smoothly. That it ought to be normal. No problems, no illness, no relationship difficulties, no stress. Somehow, it's supposed to be normal. We're looking for the monorail. The fact is, life is not a monorail. Life is a roller coaster. That's monorail, roller coaster. Now, what the book of Ecclesiastes wants to do is it wants to adjust your expectations, to let you know what ride you're on, so that you're not having false expectations. Because expectations mean a lot. For 20 years I taught at Moody Bible Institute, downtown Chicago. I lived out by O'Hare, and so every day it was a commute. Like Los Angeles area, Chicago is horrible for commuters. The roadways are jam-packed and often at a standstill, and it's just not a pleasant experience. From my house to my office was 13 miles. If there were no traffic, I could do it in 17 minutes. I remember once there was no traffic. I think it was 3 in the morning for some reason. But at any rate, like LA, in Chicago, there aren't times when there's really no traffic. That means you always cope with traffic. Now, that reality means that if I woke up every morning and thought, I'm going to be at work in 17 minutes, I'd have a very, very disappointing life day after day, because it was never 17 minutes. If my expectations were 17 minutes, they would be frustrated day after day. You see what kind of mistake that is? That mistake is substituting the ideal for the normal. See, 17 minutes might be ideal, but 17 minutes is not normal. And if I expect the ideal, I shouldn't really ever think that's going to happen. Welcome to your life, to my life. We would love life to be ideal, for everything to go right, for our plans to work out, for us to be happy and healthy, meeting our goals, accomplishing our objectives, good friends, happy times, success, prosperity. That's an ideal. It's not normal. That's what Ecclesiastes is trying to tell you. Trying to tell you that all of those things you have in your profile of ideal have to be set down, examined, and set aside. Because the ideal just doesn't work out that way. Normal is different than ideal. And so, the book of Ecclesiastes is trying to adjust your expectations for life. Because the most natural thing for human beings is to seek self-fulfillment. And Ecclesiastes is taking great pains to tell you that's a fool's hope. In that sense, Ecclesiastes is talking about the quest. The quest for self-fulfillment. Okay, what about the quest where you pursue wealth? That's one quest. That falls apart. Here's all the different ways. What about the quest where you pursue fame? What about the quest where you pursue wisdom, education? What about the quest where you pursue posterity, passing on a legacy? What about the quest where you pursue religion for all it has to offer for you to gain? Check them off one after another. The book says, hevel, hevel. Now we read Ecclesiastes, and we want to ask the question, okay, I understand that there's some prospects of failure on these different quests. So what shape should my quest take? Again, we can read the book and we see clearly the problem. But then we look for the answer. Where is it? What should the quest look like? Where can I find fulfillment? None of those things that I normally think about work. What is it that the book wants to tell me? That God wants to tell me about the quest? The book is not going to give you a substitute quest, a new quest, something that works. Rather, the author wants you to abandon the quest. It's a bankrupt quest. Abandon it. You say, wow. So, what's that mean? I mean, if I'm not going to be on the quest for fulfillment, for whatever, prosperity, wealth, kids, education, am I just supposed to be a sack of potatoes? I mean, just a lump on a log? What am I supposed to do with that? Does this mean there's no ambition? There's nothing to pursue in life? What does he want from me? If he doesn't want me to pursue those things, if he's telling me to abandon the quest, what he's asking me to do is to abandon the quest for self-fulfillment as something that is going to give your life meaning. See, we all tend to think very easily that when we are fulfilled, our life will have meaning. We will have achieved that which we sought. And that will give meaning to life. Maybe it's the relationship that you wanted. Maybe it's the job that you wanted, the career that you wanted. Maybe it's the feeling like you're in the kind of relationship with God that you wanted. There might be all kinds of things that are in your mind. And if I can achieve that, life will have meaning. That's what Ecclesiastes is telling you is bad thinking. But he's not saying that therefore none of those things are valuable, or that none of those things should be pursued. The question is not whether they should be pursued, but what are they accomplishing? If you look at them to accomplish fulfillment, meaning in life, there's the problem. And here's what Ecclesiastes is trying to do in its place. It says, pursue those things that you would want to pursue, recognizing that you won't get some of them, and that others, when you get them, they'll seem hollow. But when the good things come your way, success, achievement, wealth, relationships, when the good things come your way, don't look for that fulfillment that's then going to last the rest of your life. Rather say, this is a gift from God. Thank you. The exchange, when you abandon the quest for fulfillment, those activities, those pursuits, those achievements become gift from God. Might not last, might have a hollow sort of feel to it sometimes. But see, if you're not looking at it as giving meaning to your life, there's a difference. This is a gift from God. I write a lot of books. I don't even know how many. But I've spent my life writing books. It's kind of ironic because I was an accounting major in college. And when I used to write papers, my father would read them and he'd just, you can do a lot better than this. I know you can do a lot better than this. This writing really needs work. And I distinctly remember saying on one occasion, come off it, Dad. It's not like I'm going to spend my life writing or something. Well, of course, different plans. I have spent my life writing. Lots of people think that they would like to write books. That seems like a dream that they have. Maybe some of you do. No, maybe it's not textbooks or reference books. Maybe it's more novels or something of that sort. But lots of people think, writing books would be cool. I'd like to write books. Because I've always struggled with my writing ability, writing books didn't have that kind of draw to me, like, wow, I'd really love to be an author and write books. It just never had that draw. The reason I write is because I think I've got things that can help people when I say them, and so it allows me to extend my classroom. So I try to write ideas as best I can. I need a lot of help. I need good editors. But here's the thing. Writing a book sounds like a great idea. I love the brainstorming part, where I get an idea for a book that I think would really be helpful, that I feel like I have something to say, and I propose it to a publisher, and the publisher accepts the idea, and I get a contract, and now I have to do all the hard work of actually writing it. And people think that that would be kind of the coolest thing in the world, to kind of finish a book, you get it published, and there you get the book in the mail, and wow, your name's on the cover, and you've written a book. Okay? What's next? You know, believe me when I say, it's not a feeling that lasts. It's not like you just kind of bathe in the warm feeling of, I wrote a book. You know, you get tired of looking at it there after a while. There's other things to do in life. And you know, that and $3 will buy you a cup of coffee. It has its limitations. It's got its work. And if I felt like my identity was going to be based on that accomplishment, you know, it would be a very hollow feel to it. Fact is, by the time I really get a book in the mail that's complete, I've already in the throes of working on another one and struggling with that, and I hardly pay any attention to the fact that, oh, this one came in the mail. That's nice. Put it on the bookshelf. Keep working. And that's how it is with so many things in life. We think that it's going to have this grand feeling to it. Again, meaning in life, fulfillment. I've reached my goal. And then we often, so often, find it hollow. And there's something else, something above, that now we strive for. I'm not saying not to strive for it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have hopes or goals. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have ambition in the best ways. I'm not saying that you should just not do anything because it's just not going to give you the fulfillment feeling. I'm saying you ought to scrap the idea that that fulfillment feeling is worth pursuing. Because that's not what life's supposed to be about. Pursue your dreams and your hopes and your goals. When you achieve them to some measure, thank God for the gift of achievement, of some measure of success. And then continue to look for the grace of God. Now, that's the message Ecclesiastes wants to deliver. Abandon the quest. You're not on the self-fulfillment path. Okay? You can pursue the same kinds of things, but pursue them knowing that sometimes you'll fail. It's a roller coaster. It's not a monorail. And that whatever you achieve is God's gift. There's another side of it in Ecclesiastes. Perhaps one of the most familiar sections of the book of Ecclesiastes is in chapter 3. And when you were reading through the book, you probably said, oh, I recognize that stuff. You know, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot. We go through 8 verses of these antitheses. So that's part of what the book of Ecclesiastes wants to convey. We can say, when things go well, gift from God. But they often don't go well. I fail. I have troubles and trials. I have crises. Some days I feel like I'm barely holding myself together. What about that? What about the times that no one would choose? People choose the time to enjoy when there are things to enjoy. But you don't choose the time for mourning. I was just at Westmont, drove in today, I was there yesterday, and yesterday morning we heard news of one of the students just yards from the entry to campus had a motorcycle accident and was killed. Not a choice anybody would make. And so then there's crisis. For that student, his life is over. For his parents, there's the sadness. For the students, there's the loss of their friend. Nobody chooses those. But that's part of life. That's part of the roller coaster. So what do you do then? How do we think about life when it's going all wrong? You know, when things seem to be kind of on a level keel, we tend to think of how it could be better. That's the fulfillment thoughts. How it could be better. Things aren't so bad, but they could be better. What if I could do this, or get chosen for that, or meet this person, whatever. When things are going horrible, you're sick, you're depressed, you're at a loss, you didn't get what you were seeking. When things are going horrible, our thought is, if you could only get back to normal. You know, I never really realized, for instance, you'd say, how nice it was not to have these headaches all the time. And now I just can't get through a day without a really bad headache. And if only we could get back to the place where I wasn't having these headaches, life would be a lot better. So we all face frustrations. And when we're in those frustrated times of life, we're not looking for fulfillment, we're just looking for some level ground of normality. How do we get there? Ecclesiastes not only tells you that the quest for fulfillment is a futile one, but also tells you that you ought to expect frustrations. It is a roller coaster. And that means there are downs as well as ups. And you ought to expect frustrations in life. Doesn't mean we have to like them. But we ought to expect them. Again, remember we're talking about normal, not ideal.